always say, this is the hardest part, just trying to get started. But it's good to be back. I know we've been off for a while now from snow, and um, it's good to see the ones back that got to make it today. I see that we're a little low in numbers this morning. And I know there's a lot of sickness, and it's still pretty cold outside for some, but if y'all have your Bibles, want to turn with us, we're going to be in the First Peter chapter number 5. And I'm going to try to do this lesson without some of our elders getting mad at me, because this is kind of what this chapter talks about, but it's in a good way of out of respect of them and things of that. But we'll start in verse number 1, and it says, "The elders which are among you I exhort, who am also an elder and a witness of the sufferings of Christ, and also a partaker of the glory that shall be revealed." I just got to really thinking about all the elder people in my life that really meant a lot to me. I kind of go back and start thinking of like Ruby Williams and Lee Williams. When I was younger, I'd go down the middle on Papa's, and they'd pick us up from school, and I'd make my way up there to see Lee, and we'd get up there and talk about baseball. And at the time when I was in high school, I know this is bad, but yes, I was doing tobacco, and we'd go up there and talk, and we'd exchange dips to see who's tasted like what and stuff. But we learned so much, and he'd talk about his garden, and like that, we'd talk about baseball and stuff, and then I'd mingle my way back down, and sometimes I'd go to Martha's and Glenn's, and we'd go over there and talk. Me and Glenn would stand out there and look at the deer as they walked by. Then as I got even older, and they passed on from us, Bob, I'm gonna pick on you. I have to look at, but listen to Bob teach me God's word and stuff, and it really meant a lot to me to be able to witness that. But what I really got thinking about is how other elders that don't go to our church may go to another, kind of the ones that don't even probably go to church. I've before up here that I would rather go to the stockyard and sit and talk to the old men over there, because they can teach you so much, some stuff you might not need to know or learn about. But so many times you go over, you get to talking about what they've been through and what they've done in life, and kind of a warning of what you might need to watch out for. And then they teach you this, and they can teach you that about I learned a lot going over there, and they show you what to look for in the cattle and stuff like that, or they may talk about the truck or what they done at their farm and stuff like that. And then I used to, when I was just out of high school, I'd go run up there to BP, and Randall would be sitting up there, and I'd be sitting around with Bill McKinney and all of us, and we'd sit up there and talk and aggravate each other. And a blessing to be able to be around our elders and just get to talk and stuff, because most of the time I can't even stand being around people my age. When I go to talk to them, they want to talk about this and talk about stuff I just don't have interest in, or they're doing that. But then when I talk to my elders, they teach me so much more, and I'm able to learn from them. And but I'm thankful for the elders that I had in the church when I was growing up. I can't remember all of them's names, and I hate to go through and try to name every one of them. But so many times we'd come in, half of us would talk about knives, talk about hunting, we talk about farming. Still today, some of us do. But the main thing that they would teach us about is Christ, and you got to see them be able to come up here and testify before they passed away, knowing that they were saved. And they would teach us so much about the Bible and talk about it, and how the old times were when they was growing up, and how the church was really on fire, and you know, they was up here shouting and testifying out, just going on and having a service, you know. And we learn from that as we grow up because our church can change very easily. If we let the wrong things come in, we can be like some of the other churches. And I'm not trying to be rude, but where you go in, and we was talking about this yesterday at Hudson's birthday party. Some of us sitting around that there's church down the road that he's a good guy and stuff, but they said that he talks about, well, if you repeat this prayer after me, you'll be saved. And you know, I want to stick to the old way. I don't want the new everything new way coming out. I know with a little bit of change, we witnessed some changes and stuff, and that's fine. But going back to the old days, you know, when they would shout and they knew that you had to be convicted before you could be saved and stuff like that, you know, we learned that as I'm growing up and how I need to be saved. And when I was younger, I was afraid I would never know how to be saved. When I remember I was like, well, how am I going to know? You know, it's really kind of hard to explain, but once God really knocks on your heart, you know when it is, and after you've been saved, then when God gives you something, you know it's God saying, hey, I need you to do this. Hey, I need you to stand up and raise your hand. I need you to testify. But I had to watch my elders, and back then they probably wasn't considered elders. But when I was younger, they, you know, I had a lot of older ones, and but as I watched them, you would learn from that. You would learn that when they would get up and testify, and I remember Gladys would be back there, and she would shout, and I remember a lot of times Mom had to take me outside because I would start crying and screaming because I didn't know what was going on. But now as I got older, I learned from that, and when somebody shouts and gets to going, you know, they've got the Spirit on them, and they feel it, and, you know, now it flows from breath to breath, and we were able to feel that, and I miss those days of when, and I know we don't like talking about the past a lot, but you know that's how I learned when I was growing up was a lot from our elders and what they taught me and what I got to watch them do and stuff. And I remember when I was also younger, and we mentioned it before, but like Loretto sat up there and do the sign language, and I probably didn't have the time to listen to Lynn or whoever was here at the time because I was watching her. I didn't understand none of it, but I just thought it was really great of how that God was using people in ways in church that you know that needed it. But like I said, I try not to pick on too much this morning, but I'm just wanting to tell you that I'm very thankful for the elders of our church, the ones that's still able to be here, the ones that still be able to come. And you know, I got to thinking a lot about Geneva last night. Just how, you know, when she comes, she don't really say nothing at all, and she just kind of sits there. But it's a blessing just to see her here from the things that she's probably went through in life, and being able to get here to church. And you know, I talked to her husband a lot when he was still here. We talked about knives. He's one of the ones that really like knives and stuff. But the most importantly thing is they was here and they would testify and tell you that they was saved. They might not speak a lot, but they would, when they finally said that, you know, it was a blessing just to hear it. And we'll go to verse number 2, and it says, "Feed the flock of God, which is among you, taking the oversight thereof, not by constraint, but willingly, not for filthy lucre, but of ready mind." And I got to thinking on this part of how when I was growing up, the elders would take you under their wings and help. Is I had parents that raised me, and I had grandparents that helped, and most of the time I probably sat over here with them. But as you get older, and the elders was there to help teach you, and still today, what elders that we have, we still got a lot of young kids in here that watch us, and they think of you as a family and things. And as you all testify, and as they come to you for needing help or anything, our elders are always there to help. And Linda is still out, and when we have a death, she still goes out and gets the quilts or whatever that they may have to buy, but she is there to help with a suffering loss or something like that. But we still got the elders of our church that help us. And, you know, I still, as I've got older, you know, I don't really consider Steve and Dad and Marshall and all of them and really as my elders much because I've just been around and still, but what I'm saying is the one that's even been here a lot longer, you know, the ones that say I've been here over 50 years and at the church, or you know, I was back when it was the old church and stuff. I look way back, I wouldn't even thought of then at the old church, but I just love to be around my elders this morning. I just want to give y'all thanks for everything that you've done, how you've built the church up, how we was able to still be able to worship, to teach, and to learn and to watch when I was growing up of how that our church service would go. And very thankful for the hard work that you've put into the land. And just like I said, it's just amazing to me that I can still see 80, 90-year-old guys get out and still farm and still get out. And we go on hikes, and there's this little old lady who went by us, and she had to be up in her late 60s, early 70s or something. She flew right by us, and me and Dad looked at each other and said, if she's doing this, we might as well just quit because she just flew right by us. But it's just amazing to me of how everybody still gets around to do things, and to be able to go out and enjoy God's land, and to be able to go out and do things for the Lord this morning and still learn from our elders, because without them, we have a new generation that's in school, and I'm not saying our schools are terrible, but they're getting to where the kids are starting to get corrupt, and we're losing that old time religion that we sing about and stuff. They're losing it and stuff. And working in the schools, I see it a lot, that these kids are the way they're acting, the way they're not trying to be judgmental, but the way they're dressing and stuff. Back in it was like growing up. It was like the ways that of life when it's very hard in today's society. But I want to stick close to my elders, and I want to learn more from you and stuff. What you had to go through growing up. I remember, I don't know how long ago it was. Somebody may know because I'm not good with dates and stuff. But when the Great Depression happened, all of the ones that were still back in, they had to fight to get through that. They had to survive. They had to do things. And to me, that's very impressive that they made it through those hard times. But it was God's help that helped them get through it. Don't get me wrong, but they still had to suffer through things and stuff, and be able to talk and to be able to learn from what they had to go through back in. Really, like I said, it really surprises me, and it's really a blessing to be able to see everybody still here through the times that they had to go through losing somebody, through a lot of things, and they're still here because when I guess we can put it this way, when we lose somebody, very devastating, and it hurts. But then when you see our elders still here, still trucking along, no matter what's happened to them and stuff, that's a huge blessing, because they could. My husband died, I can't drive here no more, or my wife died, I'm just going to stay at home because it really hurt, and I've seen it happen before. But yet they keep coming and they keep wanting to worship God and Him things, and that's a big blessing to me. Because like I said, I know when it gets cold or it's getting more dark outside, it's harder for them to get here. But when they are here, it's a blessing to see our elders still be able to come and worship God and want to be here and have a desire to be here. And then verse number 3, it says, neither as being lords over God's heritage, but being examples to the flock. And when the chief shepherd shall appear, ye shall receive a crown of glory that fadeth not away. It keeps, I got to thinking on this part too, once our elders are getting up, and I'm not saying I could die tonight, I'm not saying that I'm going to be able to live to be an elder, but the elders that we still have, their journey that they had, and to be able to teach, and to help our young ones, to help my age, and to help even up in the 40 and 50-year-olds, I guess you'd say, yeah, you might be older to me, older than me and stuff, but when we've got our upper elders and they're helping our 40 and 50-year-old people still need help. And I'm not trying, like I said, I'm trying not to get in trouble by how I'm wording this. People are going to say I'm calling them old. I mean, we all going to get to that point. Well, that's, like I said, I might not make it to an elder, but if I don't, that's all right. But going back, and it says to receive a crown of glory, once our elders has ran their race, to me it feels like it's a little bit more easier, because what they went through and what they've been able to fight through and to get through. And once they receive that crown, they're with the Lord and they're done. They've ran their race. They've helped what they can, and when God says it's finished, they're done and they're going to heaven. And that's a big blessing to me to see when when I've heard their testimony and stuff, and they're able to go and be with Him, and their race is finished. It's just a huge blessing. Yeah, it hurts to see them go, because it seems like it's more and more. Like I said, our crowd this morning, I'm usually seeing a lot more out, but I know a lot of this weather stuff, but it really puts a damper on us when I don't see a lot of our elders being able to show up, because I had much respect for them this morning, and have much respect for what they've done for this church and what they've done for other churches that they might have been a member of before, but what the work that they're still doing while they're still here is a huge blessing. They may not think it's much. Like I said, I know, and I could keep picking on her, but Geneva, I don't really see her doing much but just sitting there, but it's just a huge blessing that she is there. And it was a big blessing back when, I know when we had pink out, we all done pink out and stuff, and like I said, she don't say much, but she wore her pink, and it was just a blessing to Chelsea that she even participated, because it was just a lot of things that happened in our lives, and just to have the support from our elders this morning is a very huge blessing to us, and growing up and them teaching us and things. And I know I kind of keep repeating over myself, but like I said, I'm just very thankful for our elders this morning. And when I got to teach it, or when God laid this on our heart, I was just trying to figure out how I could do all this without you all being mad about me calling a lot of us elders. But like I said, I'm just very thankful of you this morning, and every day that we get to come in here and see your face and get to hug on you, and the weather that we've had, you all are still here with us and stuff, and that's just a huge blessing to me. And then it keeps going on. It says, likewise, ye younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. Kind of going back what I said, I kind of done that growing up. Always wanted to be around older people when I was growing up. I didn't really care much for being around my younger generation. Me and Nathan hung out a lot. When I'd be at my mama's, he would be up at Lowlands, and I'd always call up there and say, "Can Nathan come down and play?" But that was us growing up. But we had the same mindset. He wanted to be around Lee and Ruby. He wanted to be around Glenn and Martha. And, we just kind of compacted together and went around and talked to them and done things together. But it's a lot of times today you see our younger generation wanting to be out away from our elders, and they want to venture out. And to me, when I start seeing that, I start seeing a lot of trouble as they're moving away from staying away, and they're wanting to hang out with this generation that is corrupt. We talk about how this world is so corrupt now. Well, they get in this younger generation and get out, and they get away, and they start getting more corrupt, and they start getting out and doing things they shouldn't be doing with that generation that we have. But our elders, they've over here trying to teach us right from wrong, and what they've witnessed, and what this thing will do, medicine will do to you, and what this drink will do to you and stuff. But they don't want to listen anymore to our elders. And like I said, I'm just very thankful that I had a bunch of elders growing up that taught me right from wrong. And my parents, I couldn't ask for any better parents to raise me up. My grandparents couldn't ask when mom and dad wasn't able to come, they brought me to church and things like that growing up. But it wasn't just from my family, it was what I watched of the elders and stuff helping me grow, and watching and being able to witness what they went through and what they're still going through, but they're still here testifying for the Lord this morning. Like I said, I know I kind of keep repeating myself, but our younger generation does not want to be around what our elders had grown up to be. They want to kind of venture off on their own, and I know once we get married and stuff, we're supposed to venture on our own, but I still need advice from my elders. I still need thoughts, and what do you think of this? What should I do about this? And I need help on teaching about this or something like that. And I know I can go to Bob about it, and I call Dad a lot, and I can count on Steve and Tim and all of us, and Dwight. I can just name a lot of them that is there to help, and they're there to pray for us. Our elders are here to pray for our younger generation coming up into this world. But it seems like more and more that we're getting away from that. And like I said, I've got told a bunch of times that they said I was born in the wrong generation because I needed to be back in the old times, and and I'd have loved it probably just to be back. And I like to go back and look, and this is how funny it is. But I like to go back and look at how they used to dress back in and what little hats they wore. Now we got these ball caps that's got the bills and stuff, but they had their little hats and wasn't really considered, I guess, cowboy hat, but they had their little top hats and stuff. And then going back, and I sent Dad the other day. I'm real big into liking the Civil War stuff, and they had an old leather wallet, and I always liked that wallet. Probably never would carry it around, but now they make reproductions of them, and I ordered it. But just being back in those days, of what they've had to go through, the Civil Wars, and I know that was back in 1860s and stuff like that. But as we keep going, then you've got World War II that I've still seen a lot of family members or people that we talk to that still have family. Now they're way up there in age, but the war they had to go through and survived, and still what they had to go through, they're still worshiping God through it all, through all the wars and things that they've had to fight and overcome. Like I said, I have very much respect for our elders. And then it says, ye all of you be subject one to another and be clothed with humility, for God resisteth the proud and giveth grace to the humble. Humble yourselves therefore under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time, casting all your care upon him, for he careth for you. That's all we can do this morning is it's just give God whatever it is that you need. Whatever, I mean, like I said, growing up, watching how our elders pray and really get down, and I remember it used to be loud in here from prayer. You can hear, and I could about try to guess which ones was praying as they was going. It was clustered up, but I could hear one over here and I can hear one over there, and I'd listen to them. And growing up, I'm like, man, that's they're praying hard. But now when somebody gets down and they just start really praying hard, I know how it feels now. I know the blessing that really giving it to him. Really praying for our youth growing up, really praying for the growing up, and asking God to take care of us as we and stuff. We can't help what happens. Once a kid, I guess, turns 18 or whatever, they go out on their own or they get in college. And to me, college is kind of corrupting kids today. I'm sorry to say the truth, but watching stuff, I know social media is terrible to be on, but I learned this in college, and this is the right way now, and I believe that this is how this was formed, and is there really a God anymore, and they're corrupting them. And to me, I would rather just stick with my elders, stick with learning what I learned as I was growing up, staying away from that stuff, being able to learn from them instead of having to learn from a professor that thinks he's just the smartest thing on earth, being able to make science. Oh, well, this is how we was formed. Well, no, we was formed by God's hand, and growing up and stuff. But we've got to be careful with our younger generation because they could get so easily corrupted. And, we need to be there to take them under our wings to be able to teach them right from wrong. And I know, as I said, once they get older, they have a choice. But when I grew up, I could have probably went out and got married to somebody and just went off and never stepped back in the house of the Lord. But growing up, it got preached to me. It got put into me. The elders talked to me, and watching them and stuff. And I said, I want to be a part of that. I want to be able to worship God like they did. I want to be able to talk like they did. I want to be able to go out and tell people like they do about God this morning. And like I said, it was just a very big blessing to me. But then it says, be sober, be vigilant. Adversary, the devil, is as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking who he may be devour. Like I said, I've done kind of hit that subject already about how corrupt that this world is today, and how our schools are driving it into their heads. And I don't care to tell you this, may get in trouble about, but whatever. But I walked into school so many times, and over here they have a liberal. A lot of you know what it is, but it's a kind of a safe house for our ones that are marrying the same sex couples and stuff like that. And to me, that's wrong. Growing up, that's just the Bible talks about it of all these things, and where he destroyed Sodom I can't even say the words right, Gomorrah. But growing up, I mean, this is what they're doing in our schools. But then I can walk on down the hall just a little bit more, and there's a Christian Bible study. And I'm sitting there like, I just don't understand. But they try to make it a safe place for our kids. But to me, that's just, it's wrong letting them grow up to think this. And you can walk over here, and they're having a Bible study. And I'm still thankful that they're able to still have Bible studies. But when you walk by this classroom and it's almost full, and you're sitting there thinking, really? Why? Why would you? But it's the way when we're growing up. Like I said, we have decisions as we get older, but I wanted to stick to what I knew from my elders and what I learned from my parents and what I learned, what's right from wrong and things like that, because I don't know about you all, but when I do wrong in my life, God puts it on me that, hey, you didn't do this right. Hey, you said this. You shouldn't have done that. And you can feel that guilt that after you've sinned, and as I say, child of God. And so many people I hear today that, oh yeah, I love God, I love Him, and God done this for me, but over here they're using His name in vain, and they're talking bad about somebody, or they're just cussing up a storm, and oh, I'm gonna go party after this tonight. But how can you talk about God and do all these things? And it makes me wonder, do they really have what I have this morning? Do they really have what our elders of our church have? Because, I mean, once you become a child of God, you need to stick with it. We need to stay in church. We need to be able to help our younger generation growing up. Or like I said, the devil's like a roaring lion, and he's going to devour them once they get out into the world and they get out into these things that the world is just like, you kind of go back and look at Adam and Eve, and Adam, God told him not to bear it, and Adam listened for a while. Well, then Eve went and took the bite of the fruit. It was just that pretty red apple. If somebody gave me, say Chelsea went to the grocery store and I could grab an apple, and boy, that thing's going to look nice and tasty. Well, I could take a bite of it. Of course, I mean, most of the time you can tell if an apple's got a rotten spot, but let's just say I take a bite of it and there's a worm inside or there's a rotten spot. I wanted that apple because it looked pretty on the outside, and I went for it. And after I took a bite, all it was inside was just a rotten mess. And, that's so many times of our younger generation, somebody can come up and give them something or tell them something, and they're like, man, that sounds great. That looks good. Let me take a bite of that. Let me go get that. And then what happens? They're out here in trouble. They're in a car wreck because of what they was doing that night before, and I'm not afraid to say it because it's the truth. I see it so many times. You see it on the news, and I don't like the news most of the time because I don't trust them. I mean, what happened 2 weeks ago? They was talking about a big ice storm, and it happened in Nashville, but it didn't happen here. But we got prepared for that and things, and it's just, I know they're humans and stuff like that, but what I'm saying is this: there's so much corruption out there that growing up our elders warned us of. But you got to take heed from when the elders has warned us to be able to do that, to be able to stand with our elders this morning. And like I said, I really appreciate every one of you, from being a Sunday school teacher all the way up from what you've done, playing the orchestra, playing the piano, singing in the choir still, whatever it may be that your part of the church was. As I was growing up and watching you, it was a big blessing to me. And like I said, I just really appreciate the elders. And when I got to studying this, it just put a lot of memories back of what I went through and who I talked to and what I still watch today from our elders. And I really appreciate you this morning. I know we've ran out of time, but like I said, I just wanted to really appreciate the elders this morning and brag on you this morning for all that you've done as I was growing up, and a lot of us that's still here today that still consider, I guess, some of you elders, but we very well appreciate you this morning. We love you. That's all I've got. Thank you.